Hello, hello. Happy Thursday. We are so excited to see you. My name is Maggie Nielsen, and I'm here with Purse Strings. And today we'll be talking with one of our Purse Strings approved professionals, Dustin. This side, yep. And we're going to be talking, finishing up the month, talking about if buying a house is a good idea, finishing up talking about kind of this market and getting through all this crazy, and getting Dustin's opinion on all of this as well. And so, Purse Strings is here to provide this education for you. And then when you need a professional to put things in transition or transaction, we have a list of top tier financial professionals ready to serve you. And Dustin is one of those, our Purse Strings approved professional. So, Dustin, so glad to have you here today.
Excited to be here. Very excited.
For those who've never met you, could you do a little introduction about yourself?
Sure. Born and raised in the Chicagoland area. Been in mortgage banking or finance since 2003. So a little bit of a veteran over here. And I like long walks on the beach and with Virgo. What else would you want to know?
Where are you calling it from?
The suburban area of Chicago at a famous, fabulous Starbucks.
Wow, they have Starbucks over there. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, since you are the veteran, 2003, you've been doing this. So, let's just dive right in and talk about kind of the status of today's market. Um, we know prices are selling higher and quickly. That's about what we know. Can you kind of give us a summary of today's market out there?
Yeah, it's challenging to say the least. I would say that today's estate market is proposing more challenges for people that are looking to buy than I've ever faced in my whole career. Um, the silver lining is that there's a lot of answers to some of these challenges, and inventory is a shortage. Everything that I've been researching is saying that it's going to be a shortage for at least the next 1 to 2 years, depending on which areas you're in. And for that reason, supply and demand is going to be a real thing, which means that we're just competing against more people for that same piece of real estate. And in addition to that, there's going to be more people entering into their home buying journey of their lifespan over the next couple of years, which is just going to compound that supply and demand issue. Um, I still feel that it's definitely a great time to buy if it's the right property and you're all the math that I've ran is if you're going to live in a property for 3 years or more, then it's going to make more sense to purchase than to rent. Um, I can kind of go on a little bit more of a tangent, but what I would share is it is uber competitive in all markets across the U.S. I lend all across the nation except New York, and the the strategies of there's two components, right? One is there a house for me to buy? And then the house comes to the market, and then you have to compete with a bunch of other people just to make that property yours.
Right.
And that the cause and effect of that is a lot of people are overpaying what the asking price is of a property just to acquire that property. You know,
Right.
um,
Um, it, and that can, yeah, it's very, these prices are selling much higher. And so a lot of people are kind of worried that will they ever actually be worth this value, or is it worth that investment? And it's too inflated right now. Um, what are your
that
thoughts
is
on
a
that?
great, yeah, that's a great question, and that's definitely a topic that I see across the news in the media. Um, this comment is, I guess I'll just come out and say it, is I think that the supply and demand component of things, that if we were to purchase a property today and we overpay for that property, now, see, that's such an open-ended question because if you're in Tennessee, I've had clients, offer $100,000 over the asking price, which that's kind of crazy. You look at Florida, sometimes that could be the same way. So I think the equation is this your next forever home, right? Is it your starter home? Is it a 3 year or a 5 year plan? If it's the 3 year, 5 year plan, then you've got to look at, how much money am I spending in addition to what this property's worth today in today's market because it's all subjective, right? It's based upon what other people are willing to pay for real estate. And I do think that the math is there to present that you will make up that money over the next 2 to 3 years
Mhm.
based upon where the market is today. Now, the flip side of that is I'm also hearing a lot about this word recession and, our property value is going to come back down. Is there this risk of this bubble from, 2008 all over again? And the answer that I would say is no. I think that there might be there has to be some stabilization, over the
Right.
next 2 years. I can give you some data, right? I'm a numbers person, so historically, homes have appreciated in the U.S. by 3.8 or 3.9% year over year.
Okay.
Um, and in most areas in the U.S. over the last 12 months, they actually saw double-digit appreciation.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, take Chicago proper, for example. We actually ranked the second lowest of the major cities, but we still came in at 9.84%.
Wow.
And that's real big numbers, right? So if you think about if I'm on the sideline and I don't buy today and I buy in a year from now, that same acquisition is just going to cost me more money.
Right.
So I think that there is some data and some comfort to know that we're going to see some solid appreciation over the next 12 to 24 months. But I think after that, with that word recession, I think that there has to be some stability or stabilization within the market.
Definitely. And yeah, the question was very broad. And so it does kind of matter, how much overpaying you're really doing to see that return. But with the growth of the houses and how much they have increased in value, chances are that's going to continue, or at least, make up for what you paid for over those next couple of years. Um, so since right now is so competitive, like you said, it's about finding that right house and as well as beating everybody else in these offers. What are some tips to get the biggest kind of advantage or savings if you can?
Yeah, I would say I'll start off by saying this. I've been doing this for a long time, and I really measured my success by how many families I can serve. Right? It's not really about the loans that I close. And this morning, while I was driving, I was really reflecting on this last 30 days of my career. And I honestly think just the last 30 days was the highlight of my career in that we helped so many people win their offers against other people and even coached other real estate agents and really added so much value that these clients wouldn't have been able to have success without our guidance. And, I think that I'll start off by saying that having a really good real estate agent um,
Yeah.
is going to be critical. And that person really needs to understand the markets, understand what the real value is, but then also understand like what is it going to take to make you win. Like
Right.
the days of just making an offer to make an offer is different than if you actually succeed and win that offer. And then I would say that that real estate agent needs to work really closely with the lender. And the
Hmm.
lender and the real estate agent need to work as a team more than ever before. And if that stuff is missed, the client's at a disadvantage, right? So to give you tangible things that people can do is um, if you have financing to purchase a house, like your traditional pre-approval letter, which mine's great, it says that I did all my homework and we closed every loan on time for almost 6 years, but that's not enough, right? And what I would say is work with a lender that will take your pre-approval and submit that through underwriting and have your loan 100% completed. And what that allows you to do then is waive mortgage contingencies because your loan's already done. Um,
Mm.
we can then also execute a closing instead of 2 weeks, which
Oh,
then
wow.
allows you to compete against the bags of money. Um, then the other tangibles, right, is I go old school. Um, you want to stand out against other people. So I always recommend my buyers to write a personal letter or type it up
Hmm.
and compliment the sellers on why they like their house, how they could see themselves living in their house, and to be that human and hopefully the sellers are, good people, and that helps a lot. The other tangibles are that if you're coming in above an asking price, then there's what's known as an appraisal gap strategy. And understanding that basically means that the buyer will financially cover the difference in value versus the appraisal and the contract. So having that uncomfortable conversation up front to say, hey, here's what it's going to take to really allow you to win this opportunity, and to go in strong right away. The other part would be understanding what escalation clauses look like, and understanding what your max threshold is versus what your walkaway is.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing that I would say is, have a real estate agent and a lender that are going to tag team the negotiations together. So
Yeah.
one of the strategies that I do is I actually call the listing agent once an offer is being sent in, and I re-edify our process and how I'm going to make their life easier, how the loan's already completed, and really understanding with that client, like, do you want this house? Do you need
Right.
this house? Do you love this house? And if those are yeses, then let's have a huddle with that realtor and figure out what it's going to take to make that yours.
Right. These are some really good tips. I mean, it makes sense that, your two professionals really do have to talk and work together. You're not competing for anything, but making sure, it's in the right price range for the right client and everything else, but getting that then kind of pre-approval for that loan. Um, that way you can close much, much faster, or that underwriting, right, is what you call it.
Correct. Yeah. So it's basically the homework for completing the loan is already done. So it's a little bit of extra work on our end, right, on the beginning side of the process, but it just allows that person on paper to stand out against everybody else.
Right. And it's something that's going to have to be done either way, correct?
Correct.
So, I
Yes.
mean, you might as well just get it done. And so then the loan processes, that just means you're very, very much approved, and your loan is, the amount you take out is dependent on your house that you purchase.
Correct. A lot of the times, or what we do is we're gonna do the underwriting, or the approval of that loan based upon the conversation that we have with the client. So for my process, I do a 1 hour virtual loan consultation with everybody, which is just
Okay.
educational based, and really talk through good debt versus bad debt, what their real budget looks like, and really tailor their home search to meet their financial strategies. And then from there, the client has a really good insight to, here's the parameters that I want to stay within.
Right.
And then we'll get the approval on that part, and then do it specific to a property that they're looking to buy.
Awesome. That's not, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, and then I love how it's just writing a simple letter, because it's not just throwing more money always at the problem, or, the situation, but it is just being genuine and why you like it. Because it's not hard to pull out some hard things of, this is where I want to raise my family or run my business, or, see my life grow. So I love how it's still just, put some pen to paper, and that's so unique these days.
It it is, and before COVID hit, and once upon a time I used to go to my closings, and I would often hear the sellers say, "I accepted your offer because of that letter that I helped, coach them on." And the idea is just be a real person. If you have a family and they have a family, leverage that, right? If
Right.
they got an open concept kitchen and that allows you to cook the family while entertaining and engaging them, comment on that, right? If there's a dog park on the side, or they got a fence for a Toto, and they have a Toto, like, leverage.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And especially even if you're commenting on the location, because that makes sense of why you want that house or that specific area, or something like that. Um, and then last was, when you offer, when you pay above the asking price, there is that um, gap between loan and what it appraised for. So that would involve more cash that you have to bring to the table, correct? I think you're muted or something. It's a classic. It happens. I can't hear you yet. I'll let you know when I can't hear you. No, it happens sometimes. No, I can't. But technology these days, how is it going? It's always like that. This is where we'll insert our commercial break. But no, these have been a lot of great tips that we've been receiving from Dustin today about how to really go into your house buying process with some advantages on how to kind of save or beat other buyers in the process. Um, no, I cannot hear you. Let me see. Maybe want to come back in and come back out. All right, so we'll just give that another second just to finish up some of our questions here. If anyone has any extra questions, they can always pop them in the chat, and we can always get those answered for you as well. And so we are just going to then kind of talk about through the steps of buying and what you kind of should prepare on making these investments. So we'll just give him another second to jump on. Let's see. Hello, there we go, Dustin.
Testing, testing.
1, 2, it works. It works.
Oh my gosh.
It
Sorry
happens
about
with
that.
technologies these days. No worries. So yeah, I think next we can kind of just dive into like if you're considering buying, what are some of the first steps that you recommend for people to take?
That's a great question. And I would answer that honestly by saying if somebody's thinking about buying within the next year, have a conversation with a lender and more specifically, make sure it's a consultation type of approach and educational based and just not somebody that's going to um, push debt on somebody, right? I think it's really important to understand the dynamics of the market when it comes to rates, real estate, your own financial budget, your own strategy, and speak with a professional that is going to tailor your home journey specific to your saving strategies, right? And understanding good leverage versus bad leverage. And I would say from there, the best approach is if you're thinking about it, have the conversation with somebody, that's not a salesperson that's really going to talk through and understand where you're at and give you the tools and resources to ensure that your journey is going to be successful.
Awesome. Yeah. And I know I like how you kind of mentioned that, these different saving strategies, because even though we want to hit this goal, we don't want to throw off all our other goals, which sometimes is easy to get sucked in and do and throw more money to one thing than another. So it's nice to have somebody else to kind of keep you on the straight and narrow and make sure that you're not only hitting your house goal, but whatever those other future goals may be as well.
Yeah, Maggie, I truly think the vast majority of the industry that I'm in, they are really doing a huge disservice to the clientele. And what I mean by that is your traditional way of buying a house is they're going to have a conversation with you and tell you the most you can afford on paper and then say go find a house. They're not asking the questions of, what are your saving strategies, right? Understanding the liquidity, understanding where they're at in their savings career, and then understanding what the goals are in the next 2 steps of their life. Yeah. And, one of the most common misconceptions in today's market right now is that old school, I got to put 20% down to buy a house. And, I'm never going to push or try to steer somebody one idea over another. But I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, when I run the math, the client likes the idea of staying leveraged and keeping that money, making more money for them, right, with the silver lining that monthly payment meets their goals, right? Because the whole equation is there, but it really comes down to what that payment is. And as long as that strategy meets their goals, then the rest will fall into place for them.
Definitely. Yeah. And so we always got to keep those goals, all laid out, but really we're also allowing the money to do the most for us, having it in these different buckets or different allocations. And I know like lending is very deep rooted and, you really like had a house, I think growing up that you really loved, and that's why you wanted to go into lending. But I think it's important to start the conversation early, as many lenders I talk to is maybe it's not today you can buy the house, but like soon, and so you help people make a plan to get there, which is another important part about starting the conversation early.
Yeah, because you want to make it tactical. And let's face it, if you're buying a house that you want to live in, there's emotion tied to it that it's hard to get away from. And then lending is all gross income based. It's before you pay taxes, before you buy groceries, heaven forbid you want to go out to eat, right? So the budgeting system for lending in North America is flawed in my opinion. And that's where I think the problem lies, is that they're still lending more than what somebody should in most cases.
Hmm.
And part of my consultation is I go over a personal family budget with everybody and talk about tracking money, expenses, and then use that worksheet to really understand what their budget is going to look like for that future house. And then
Right.
when you complete that step, it takes all the emotion out of it, that they now feel really comfortable that they're not overspending.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's important because when you're taking on this big, you know, purchase, you don't want to feel like you've overspent, even when you take out that loan and things like that.
Maggie, there was a stat I read recently, and it's a big one, and I think it was 60 or 65% of people have buyer's remorse after they buy a house. And if you really think about it, that's more than half the people out there. And
Yeah.
if you slow down and you understand the numbers and the math and the process, and then you help that person become a successful homeowner with the acquisition and tools necessary to maintain the house, then our approach is that hopefully there isn't that remorse.
That's interesting, and I'd love to dive into that number more of how much is, the remorse of that specific purchase versus how much you spent, and that was your biggest moment of, because then it seems like there's maybe some deep rooted money issues altogether, or you did overspend. There's so many moving parts to it, and I know now it's easy to overspend, especially if you're trying to find a house that's move-in ready. And so we've had a previous conversation on Instagram about, how to kind of purchase a house that you're looking to redo, which is a whole another project. But it is a way to kind of not spend everything, but then build what you want,
Mm-hmm.
and
100%.
not get that remorse. So is there any last tips, tricks, or advice you'd like to share with our audience today?
Yes. Don't listen to everything you hear in the media. Um, more,
Everything on the internet is true, Dustin. I thought you knew
it
this.
is. Yes, it is. Um, there are still a lot of people, my clients included, that are having great success with acquiring a home. The challenges are real. Having the right team with you is super important. Um, the conversation that I'm having with the client later on today is, it's the ugly truth about, we always wanted what we can get a couple months ago, but the main objective is to get you into the house. And then everything that I'm researching is saying that rates are going to come back down sometime in the next 12 to 18 months, which would present a refinance opportunity for anybody. So, focus on the payment, make sure it's comfortable for you, and then do whatever strategies you're comfortable with to
Yeah.
make that house yours, and know that payment's going to be cheaper down the road.
I think that's a great piece of advice. And I mean, we've even talked to some professionals that in the scheme of things, these interest rates aren't even that bad. But yeah, you can always then refinance later. Don't just keep waiting and for that house equity to keep rising, or the value of the house to keep rising. Otherwise, you'll never get the house.
Yeah, I know. I've seen so many clients lose, and sometimes it takes losing a couple times to understand what it's going to take to win. But
That's some life
my
advice.
it is the truth, right? My best advice is I tell people, don't. I'm telling you all the ugly truth, but I'm not saying go out and buy a house just because of this. Like, it's got to be the right house. If the stars align and you're dealt the right hand of cards, like, then get scrappy and make it yours. But don't do it just because of all the what ifs.
I think that's some great advice because it's easy to get sucked in either way, but you have to do what's best for you. We're all in our own unique situation. So we have to just kind of do what's best for us out there and kind of our life plan. So
Mhm.
thank you, Dustin, for coming on today. We really appreciate it. You can always reach out to Dustin at the Schaff Group or Dustin at theschaffgroup.com. He's also one of our Purse Strings approved professionals, so you can check him out on our site, pursestrings.co. Just search Dustin and he'll come right on up. And just reach out if you have any questions and are thinking about getting into that home. So thank you again, Dustin, for coming on today, and we'll talk to everyone next month where we're going to talk more about entrepreneurship.
My pleasure, Maggie. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Bye. Have a great day.
You too.